They all are.
How do you think I feel? Okay, here we go.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get a city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto, Mike, we get a city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1570 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery. Robert's favorite beer, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Learn how to plan, invest, and live smarter. Season 7 of Yes We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM El Grego. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning to Toronto Mic'd is the official fact checker of the podcast. It's Robert Lawson. Welcome back, Robert.
Hey, Mike.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Well, since the summer, I guess.
We saw you at Christie Pitts. You came out for a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game. It was great to see you there.
Yeah, I try to go to a few games every summer, and having you there was just a bonus.
Okay, thank you. Okay, some people say it was better before you got here. Okay, but you're on that camp. And I met your wife, and she's a lovely woman, and it was great to catch up with you on that episode at Christie Pitts. You're most famous. You came on originally to talk about the Guess Who.
Right.
Remind us the name of your fine book about the Guess Who.
So 4 years ago, I think I published, maybe not 4 years ago. Anyway, it's called Wheatfield Empire, the listener's guide to the Guess Who.
It's very thorough.
I've been, people have complimented me a lot on the level of detail. And when it came out, Burton Cummings himself posted a long thing on Facebook where he said that he learned some stuff about the band from the book. So to me, that's the ultimate compliment.
That is the ultimate compliment. And you have a new book, and so we have to do a little mop-up on the Guess Who off the top. But we will also talk about Stevie Van Zandt. Tell us the name of your new book on Little Steven.
So the new book is Solidarity Forever, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt. So it's a detailed look at his entire career.
And you gave me a couple of beautiful, I'm just this morning, no joke, my daughter's reading this book, the 8-year-old, and she asked me for a bookmark. And I just created one out of something, and now I'm going to tell her I have a bookmark for her. You gave me a great bookmark here, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt. So thank you very much.
Sure.
And Morgan thanks you in advance. Okay, so we're going to talk Little Steven. We're going to do a little mop-up. We missed you at TMLX 16. Were you working? Why were you unable to attend TMLX 16 at GLB Brew Pub?
I think when you announced it, I just wasn't sure if I could make it or something, and the spots started filling up.
I only had 40 spots.
Yeah, so they started
exclusive
filling up
engagement.
Very exclusive.
You were on the outside looking in. But will I see you? And I know you work at, you're at Sunrise in Cloverdale Mall, right?
That's right.
Christmas is the busiest season of the year for you, right?
Absolutely. We're ramping up.
Would you be able to get away for an hour or two on Saturday, November 30th to visit us at TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen in Mississauga?
I don't know if I can get out there, but I sure would like to try.
We need someone to swing by maybe Cloverdale and pick you up or something. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Is there a FOTM carpool?
You know what? I'll go into the not so secret WhatsApp group and see if anybody can take care of you. Let's try to get Robert Lawson, the official fact checker of the Toronto Mike podcast. Let's try to get him to TMLX 17, November 30th at Palma's Kitchen, because Palma Pasta will feed you. They're sending you home with a large lasagna today, Robert. That's for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm pausing for you to, to thank me. I want you to kiss these rings over here. Okay, and of course, we know you're a big Great Lakes Brewery fan, but you're not wearing the GLB hat today. You got the Rex hat on today.
Do I? I thought I wore a GLB today.
Oh,
jeez.
I'm letting you know, Robert. I thought I might, because you teased me the first time with the GLB hat, but then you came up with the left field hat, and I was saying, oh, he better have the GLB hat on today, but you don't have the GLB hat on today.
Well, still promoting Toronto Jazz.
Absolutely. Shout out to the Rex. But you're taking home some fresh craft beer with you.
Appreciate that.
See, I'm doing this off the top because once we get smoking here, we're going to try to do a killer 60 minutes here. Maybe I'll save the other gifts for between the Guess Who talk and Little Stevie talk. But how do we get Little Stevie on Toronto Mic'd? Is this a possibility? Would Little Steven come on Toronto Mic'd to help promote your fine book?
It's something definitely worth looking into. He does do a lot of Zoom interviews. And,
I would Zoom with him.
Yeah, he does do a lot of that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't
rule it out. How friendly are you with him? Like, how close are you to Little Steven?
Well, I've known him for a little while now. I don't know if he always remembers me as much as I remember him, but now with the book coming out, he's more than aware of who I am.
Has he read the book?
He hasn't read it yet, but he was interviewed extensively for it.
Well, good. Okay, so you're going to try to get Steven Van Zandt on Toronto Mic'd. I'll try not to ask him only questions about The Sopranos, so that's my pledge to you. But can we start with a little fact-checking? You did an episode where you came over and we fact-checked the Randy Bachman episode of Toronto Mic'd. It was, I would call it polarizing because people either loved it or they felt bad for Randy and they didn't like it. But I personally love that episode. So can we start off with a little fact checking of the Guess Who?
Well, I would, just in response to that, I would say that in that time and what we're doing right now, you've invited me to talk about it. So if people are mad about what we're talking about, it's...
Well, no, at the end of the day, the buck stops here. Like, I'm the guy who presses record and then publishes the episode. So I was happy to publish your fact checking of Randy Bachman. But since then, okay, there's a few things I need to cover with you. One is, did Randy make a public statement that the Guess Who was asked to play Woodstock?
Yeah, so there's a video going around. I don't know if it's part of a documentary or something. I think FOTM
Cam Gordon?
Yeah, I think he sent
Cam Carpenter.
I think Cam Gordon sent it to me.
Okay.
And kind of asked, is anything in here true?
Okay, so let's I feel like I need a drum roll or something. So Randy did share a story where and do I have it right that the Guess Who was on tour, so they were too busy to play Woodstock, but they were invited to play Woodstock in 1969. What say you, Robert Lawson?
Well, actually, he says, and it's a real short clip. It's under 3 minutes, but he says that they were recording the American Woman album, and they were watching it on the news that Woodstock was this big muddy mess, and their manager was asking Randy, do you want to come down and play while the festival's already in progress? And they couldn't do it because they were recording the album over 10 days. So if they had done it, maybe the album wouldn't have come out or wouldn't have been the same. And it's just not, in typical Randy fashion, it's not really true. I asked Burton himself, and he said the Guess Who were not asked to play Woodstock. I think it's also a stretch that they would be asked to play Woodstock while Woodstock was going on. Like, Randy saying that they're watching it on the news, that helicopters are going in and bands aren't showing up. And he's kind of taking a bit of a swing at the counterculture too in that clip. He was never really part of the peace and love revolution or anything like that. So he didn't like that.
It's because he didn't do any drugs. Am I right?
That's what he says. He's clean living.
But that's why he's still thriving in his 80s. You gonna fact check that one?
Well,
right,
but
show me those medical records here.
But they weren't even.
HIPAA.
But when he says that they're recording the album over 10 days, so they're too busy to go, that's actually not true either. They did a couple of days in Chicago. So that was in August of '69, right before Woodstock was kind of happening, overlapping a little bit. Then they didn't go back in to finish the album till October. So they were actually playing shows, and I think I have it down on August 16th, which is during Woodstock. They were actually recording a episode of American Bandstand. So his memory that they were too busy in the studio, that's just not true. They were free. I think a couple days later they were like in Sioux Falls or somewhere. I don't know. I was looking at some tour dates last night. So they weren't like trapped in some recording studio that they couldn't go. But all the bands would have already been booked way ahead of time. I'm reading the Sly Stone autobiography right now, and I just got to the part where he says that they were booked for Woodstock like in early July or something. So a month ahead, which for a show the size of Woodstock, of course, these bands would have been booked way in advance. So
even that seems really late, like to book.
Probably,
a guest. Yeah,
sure.
So you're saying that this is further embellishment from legendary rock god Randy Bachman.
Well, again, I ran it past Burton, and he said they were not asked to do Woodstock.
My dream is to get Burton and Randy on the podcast at the same time, and we just run through some basic facts and see if they agree on anything.
Well, Burton has a very good memory, and when I interviewed him for my book, there was a couple of times that he would admit that he just couldn't remember something, which is fine. He's in his 70s, and he had a pretty rockin' lifestyle, so I get that. Randy likes to brag that he has a great memory, and he had told me, well, I never did drugs, I didn't drink, so my memory's perfect,
right.
And it's just not.
Okay, that's why you're here. Now, in that same clip, I think it suggested that a studio was built in Chicago specifically for the Guess Who to record American Woman. What do you say about that?
I'd never heard that before. I mean, they were recording in a new part of RCA's studio in Chicago. I think the previous album they had done in Studio A, and this was Studio B, or vice versa, something like that. I hadn't ever heard before that it was built specifically for them.
Okay. Now, also, I think last time you were, I believe, during one of those Christy Pitts appearances when you were on Toronto Mike, we were talking about how Burton Cummings had, what was his maneuver to prevent this new Guess Who from playing classic Guess Who songs? Like, remind us what that move was, and if there's an update on the Guess Who, because I read somewhere that ploy worked.
It did. Well, it helped anyway. He owns the copyright. He owns the publishing for all the songs, so he's allowed them to perform all these songs for all these years. So after asking them numerous times to not promote themselves as the original Guess Who, and not to use original Guess Who music to promote their own concerts. Like, they just kept doing it for years and years.
Like, so I understand, like, there might be a TV, I don't know, because they're smart enough not to play Canadian dates, I noticed, but let's say they're in some festival in, I don't know, Iowa or something, right? I'm just picking on Iowa today. I'm thinking of Field of Dreams. That's because I'm thinking of Christy Pitts. Okay, so we're in Iowa. There's a TV ad running in which they would play. Let's say These Eyes would play over the ad, but it would be the actual Burton Cummings original Guess Who studio production. So the suggestion is that if you come to this festival to see the Guess Who, you're going to see the band that recorded this song you're listening to and love, These Eyes.
I saw a TV commercial just a couple of years ago for that Guess Who playing a casino somewhere in the States, and it clearly had footage from the Guess Who reunion DVD that was filmed in Winnipeg in 2001.
Like, that's intentionally misleading.
Yeah. So, the Guess Who, this other Guess Who, used to say, well, it's the promoters, it's not us. Right. And after a while, it's like, no, this is going on for way too long. So because Burton owns the publishing, he took away the rights for them to perform any of those songs, which left them having to cancel tons of gigs.
Yeah, because if they can't play American Woman, what are they going to play?
Well, Gary Peterson told me that the two most recent Guess Who albums of original material are just as good, if not better.
So they can play that.
Then, yeah, just play that stuff. It'd be fine.
That really messes up a lot of stuff. Like, I'm thinking of Discogs or like Wikipedia. Like, when you go to a band's page and you look at discography, and then you'll see it. These new albums will be listed alongside, the Wheatfield stuff, like the OG Guess Who material.
Well, not only that, but on Spotify and places like that, even on the on a lot of social media, they would change the band picture to be the current band, and then underneath it, you see the album cover for Share the Land and American Woman.
Right.
And the Guess Who's Instagram account at the time, they would also do things like on the anniversary of say the Share the Land album coming out, they would post a photo of it and just say, "Oh, remember this?" But like, none, you guys aren't the ones who recorded that.
And again, Peterson's his name. Who's the link between this new Guess Who that was touring as the Guess Who and the classic lineup?
So Gary Peterson, the original drummer, he was still in it.
Okay.
So after Burton pulled the publishing, they went to court. Took a couple of years, and this new Guess Who, they tried to countersue. At one point, they were demanding that Burton not be allowed to say that he was the original lead vocalist of the Guess Who in his ads for his concerts. But I guess he wore them down.
And of course, he's not the original, right? Because Chad Allen is the original.
Chad Allen is the original vocalist, yeah.
Okay, he's okay. This is I find this fascinating. So I feel as developments arise in the Guess Who universe, you're going to have to make an appearance, be it at Christie Pitts or here or at a TMLX event. Like, I need to know what's going on. So what's the current status of the new band that goes by the moniker The Guess Who?
They've lost the rights to use that name. Burton and Randy now own the rights to the name. So the band has changed their name to something weird, and they have to, the albums that they have out as The Guess Who, those have to be taken off the market. They've had to rebrand their Facebook and anything like that, so they're no longer allowed to be called The Guess Who.
This is a success story for...
it is.
So Burton and Randy are in cahoots. They're allied in this venture.
Yeah, they teamed up. I don't know if they had exactly the same reasons for doing it, because Randy's currently touring with a version of Bachman Turner Overdrive that has no original members except for him.
Okay, so that was one of the facts. So we talked about, is it Fred Turner was going to be touring with this new version of BTO, but it turns out, no, it's Randy. Is Randy's son involved, Tal?
Tal Bachman is there, yeah.
Okay, but everyone else is sort of, I don't know, a hired gun or something.
Yes, and the thing that I really have an issue with is that at some of these BTO shows, Randy's been telling the audience, Fred couldn't make it tonight, but he's going to be coming soon or something, or he will be joining. I have two different friends in Winnipeg who know Fred Turner and asked him, as soon as these tour dates were announced, if he was planning on participating. And Fred is completely retired. He has no interest in it. He's not doing it. So it is not really cool, I think, for Randy to be telling people, like, because first he was saying, well, Fred couldn't be here because he's sick. And then there was an interview a little while ago where he said, well, Fred lost his wife, so he's in mourning. So that's the reason why he's not on tour. The reason he's not on tour is because he's not touring with BTO. He's not doing it at all. So I don't think it's cool that Randy is kind of baiting the fans that at some point, if you go to see BTO, Fred might be there.
Okay, good update here. I'm just checking out the live stream here real quickly because a lot of people want to see you, and looks like we might have a live stream issue, but I am recording the episode. I'm even recording the video, so everything will be available in the Toronto Mike podcast feed. And of course, I will post this video on YouTube. I'll have to talk to Ian Service about why the heck this thing stopped playing in the middle here. We have some disappointed people, but the live stream is a bonus, right, Robert? This is not about the live stream. This is about the podcast recording. We're about to pivot to Little Steven. I love your Guess Who updates, but Little Steven, I want to know basically the origin. Like, what made you decide to write this book, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt?
I've always been a huge fan ever since his first solo album came out, and kind of looking for a new project to do. Because I'm such a fan, I already had a lot of raw data. Just been collecting, lists of concerts and discography notes and just all kinds of music nerd stuff that I do. I have a full filing cabinet full of all kinds of music documents and printouts and stuff.
Right.
So I already had a lot of stuff, and it just seemed like a logical conclusion. My buddy Frank says your whole life has been leading up to you being the guy to write this book. And that's true. I've really been documenting Steve's career for a long time anyway.
What drew you to him, though? Like, because there's so many big rock stars and you're a big music fanatic. And I understand the Guess Who because you're a Winnipeg guy, right?
Right.
So I'm a Winnipeg guy. But what drew you to Steven?
I was an E Street Band fan and a Springsteen kind of guy. And then when I heard a couple of songs off Steven's first album, Men Without Women, it just got me. And to this day, I think it's one of my favorite, if not possibly my all-time favorite album. It's like Dylan singing with Keith Richards playing guitar, but Motown horns, and just came together in a way that really clicked for me.
Okay, so can we go back? I want people to, pick up this book. How would somebody get Solidarity Forever, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt?
Well, it's right now it's a little weird. It is available from the publisher's website, Friesen Press. It's available in the States on Amazon.com. I think it's going to get added to Amazon.ca this week, hopefully. And then I have a big order for stock. So I'll have a ton of books in my apartment and at work so people can come by and get
that's
a signed
exciting.
copy.
Okay, so not yet, though. I don't want to send people there tomorrow. But at the Sunrise Records at Cloverdale Mall, you could not only possibly very soon, we'll get the date from Robert in a minute, not only pick up a copy of Solidarity Forever, The Art and Soul of Stevie Van Zandt, but meet the author and maybe you'd sign the book.
I sign books for people all the time. For some reason, they like that.
Well, because it's exciting to get the author to sign your book. But when will we have those books at the Sunrise at Cloverdale?
I'm checking it. I'm like revising the webpage and my emails like on an hourly basis. So I don't have tracking numbers yet. But it is a large quantity of books, so it takes a while to put those together. So I'm really hoping within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, very exciting. So in time for the holiday season.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Well, you got to come to TMLX 17 with some books.
Yeah, I could do that for sure.
Palma's Kitchen. Here, we just we promote that meet the author, and will little Stevie make an appearance at TMLX 17 at Palma's Kitchen? I mean, only because the Petrucci family, I can tell you, Anthony Petrucci, and his family owns Palma Pasta. You won't find a bigger fan of The Sopranos. And if I told Anthony that Silvio Dante was making an appearance at TMLX 17, he'd just lose his mind.
There definitely is a whole chapter on Sopranos in here.
Okay, well, goodness, we're going to cover a bit of ground here. So let's do a little bit of Stevie talk. And then if you want the full deep dive, you know what book you have to buy. But how did Steven meet Bruce Springsteen?
They met when they were like 15, 16 years old. They were both playing in New Jersey bands, just as a lot of teenagers were after the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan and Rolling Stones were on TV and stuff like that. And just their kind of shared passion led them to become really close friends at that young age.
So they're basically just New Jersey musicians. So, of course, at some point, their paths are going to cross.
Yeah, but very young. There was a famous club in New Jersey called the Upstage, which did not serve alcohol. So teenagers who were just learning how to play their instruments and were forming these young bands, they could actually play there and just get a lot of experience.
Okay, very cool. The good news is we're back on the live stream. So it's funny, who am I talking to except people on the live stream? And when it went down, they probably bailed. But we are back on the live stream because I stopped the streaming and I started it up. And what do you know? That seemed to have fixed it. So good news to everybody at live.torontomike.com. So tell me a bit. Okay, so Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, not the Dukes. Was Stevie a member of these bands? Like Southside Johnny?
So Southside was also one of those guys who was playing the Upstage, and they had a lot of different bands. They were constantly in each other's groups. At one point, there's a band where Steven is on guitar and lead vocals, and Bruce just plays rhythm guitar. Then they changed the name, and Bruce is on lead vocals, and Steven plays rhythm guitar. Okay. And they, so there's a lot of going back and forth.
Synergies?
Yeah, there's like 30 different band names from like 1966 to like 70, and they're all in each other's bands, so...
By any chance, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but do you know the first Bruce Springsteen song that featured, an arrangement or contribution from Stevie Van Zandt?
10th Avenue Freeze Out on the Born to Run album.
See, I got the right man in the basement here for all my Stevie needs here. Okay, and you're definitely going to deliver him to Toronto Mike, absolutely. So what did he do for 10th Avenue Freeze Out?
He wasn't a member of the band at that point, of the E Street Band. But they had some horn players, like session guys, who just weren't really getting the parts right. And they kept trying. And Steven, because he was arranging horns for their Asbury Jukes and Southside Johnny, he had a lot of experience with that. So at one point, even though he's not an official member of the sessions, he's just visiting his friends. The story is he storms into the studio and says, "Put away those charts, boys." And he sings the lines to each horn guy of what he thinks they should play. And that's what they ended up doing. So when you listen to the 10th Avenue Freeze Out on the Born to Run album, those horn parts were dictated by Steven.
And those horn parts are great on 10th Avenue Freeze Out. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, and so that contribution led Bruce to asking Steven to rejoin the E Street Band at that point. And so on the Born to Run tour was the first time that Bruce had a second guitarist.
Okay, so that's 1975.
Right.
And now Stevie Van Zandt is an official member of the E Street Band.
Yeah, so by Darkness on the Edge of Town in 78, he gets a co-production credit. By the River in 1980, he's a full-fledged member of the production team. And so he's always had a little bit more influence on the band than just other guys in the group, because I guess he was just so close with Bruce. So he's the guy that Bruce would often turn to for advice, which ties into his role on The Sopranos. He kind of plays the same kind of character.
Okay, we're going to get to Sopranos, absolutely, here. But when does he leave? I mean, the first time, when does he leave the E Street Band? So he joins it officially in 1975, and when does he tap out?
84.
See, now here's what I learned, okay, and I went through your book, and I had no idea. Because I didn't really appreciate 70s Bruce, okay? So the E Street Band, so I come to Bruce, I become awakened by Bruce during Born in the USA.
Sure.
What's that, 85 or 84?
84.
84, okay. You're the expert here, okay. So it's almost like I don't even really understand this whole E Street Band thing until later. And I guess in my mind, little Steven was always a member of the E Street Band. Like to learn that he left the band, why does he leave the band?
Well, he started doing his own records. And that was sort of the official story. Bruce was taking a really long time recording and releasing the follow-up to The River, which ended up being Born in the USA in terms of a full band studio album. So Steven put out an album in 82 called Men Without Women. And at that point, based on interviews, he still thinks that he can do the E Street Band when Bruce comes back. But then Steven had a second album ready to go in 84 as well. So they came out within weeks of each other. And at that point, they knew the Born USA tour is going to be this massive global thing. There's just no way that Steven could do that and do his own album at the same time.
And in real time, you were a fan of these solo efforts by Steven Van Zandt, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So can you tell me a bit? I honestly think I missed this. Like, again, I'm not as cool as you, okay? I did have a copy of Born in the USA, but what was the little Steven solo material like? Just talk to me about it.
Well, the first album is a real soulful album. It's got a big horn section, and it's a real organic kind of thing. He changed a little bit. His album in 84 called Voice of America is more of a hard rock album. No horn section anymore, more guitar driven. But he always has little bits of reggae and stuff like that. The third album, Freedom No Compromise in 87, has a lot of world music influences, a lot of different language on the vocals. But I would say the Men Without Women album is the one to start with for sure.
Okay, I'm going to play it again. I've been having difficulty with Spotify, so I'm going to play a song just so they remove this episode from Spotify, because I encourage all listeners of Toronto Mic'd to use a different podcast app, a different podcast aggregator to consume your Toronto Mic'd episodes. What app do you use, Robert Lawson?
What's an app?
How do you listen to Toronto Mic'd?
YouTube, mostly, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. You're the guy. Okay, here, let's listen to a little bit of this. I want to ask you about this.
Rockers and rappers united and strong. We're here to talk about South
This is the part that I always think of Living in America by James Brown. I don't know if you can hear any Living in America in there.
That's funny you say that.
Why is it funny I say that?
In '87, when Steven was touring his third album, he was doing this song live with Bruce Springsteen. It's the only time I've ever heard in the song they started repeating the chorus to Living in America.
I've always heard it that way, but why? So let's tell the listenership. I've learned long ago, don't assume anybody knows anything, because somebody is going to learn for the first time about not only about artists united against apartheid, but Sun City, this song, the role of Little Steven. Talk to me, Robert Lawson.
So Sun City, the song, was just going to be a track on his third album that he was writing in the mid-'80s. And then they got the idea to have a couple of other people sing on it with him, and that just kept expanding and expanding. Next thing you know, it became its own album with all kinds of different people singing on it. But it is a Steve Van Zandt composition.
So he wrote this song.
He wrote it. He's doing a lot of the lead vocals. He plays guitar on it. He does a lot of the keyboards and the programming. It is a Little Steven song, but now he's got on it Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and Bono and Jackson Brown and just Pete Townsend.
Africa Bambaata's on this thing.
It's one of the first kind of pop or rock records that has a lot of hip hop guys at the beginning, and then there's a middle part too where they
Run
come
DMC.
in. The Fat Boys are on it. All kinds of guys that maybe were not mainstream on like rock or white radio back then.
No, you're 100% right. Like, there is no hip hop at all on We Are the World.
No, this is way more of a street sounding record than We Are the World. I mean, it's got a real heavy beat to it. And, I watched that recent We Are the World documentary. I thought it was horrible. and the song is just like so vanilla and so safe. Whereas Sun City, especially if you see the video for Sun City, they actually time the drum beats to like footage of like police like whipping black protesters and stuff like that. It's pretty heavy stuff.
It's a very important cause, and as I read your book, it was interesting to read basically how... Oh, here's a little hip-hop, huh? Yeah, like it's interesting to read how involved, how politically active Little Stevie Van Zandt was, and I'm sure he still is. But here's a cause. It's hard to believe because we both lived through it, but it's hard to believe not that long ago the South African government had a policy of apartheid. Like in hindsight, it's like that was the case in 1985, but of course, absolutely it was. And to have these artists, U2 is involved in this. You mentioned Tom Petty's on this jam. Like Sun City was a big deal.
Well, Petty's not. I wish he was. I wish he was.
I gotta fire my researcher. Okay, Tom Petty. You know what? Rosie Gray T.O., the Sun City wiki page lists Tom Petty as being on this jam.
Yeah, he's definitely not on it. But a lot of people are. So,
What was Petty up to? Come on, Petty. Where were you, buddy?
Yeah,
but did he sort of like, I'm thinking now when I chatted with Mid-Year and we talked about Do They Know It's Christmas? And, Geldof is the guy who would phone up everybody and get them all involved. And Mid-Year wrote the song. So Little Stevie writes the song, but what role does he play in getting these 49 or so artists together to record?
Well,
Sun City.
He kind of has a big part of it. His co-producer Arthur Baker, who comes from a hip hop and rap background, which is where I think a lot of those elements come from. He knew a lot of people too. Steven's just always known a lot of people. He's more of a social guy than Bruce ever was. So he goes out to see a lot of bands. He produces a lot of other artists. He just knows a lot of people. The same year that he did Sun City, he participated in a Bob Dylan recording session. So Steven's just knows a lot of people. His Rolodex must be like huge. All the different musicians and producers and writers and stuff that he's crossed paths with.
Yeah, more than just Bruce in that Rolodex.
Well, I remember, reading the first Springsteen, well, maybe it's not the first Springsteen biography, but there used to be a book called Born to Run by Dave Marsh, and it mentioned at one point the E Street Band was doing some recording, and the Stones were down the hall. And Marsh makes a point of saying, but Bruce was too shy to go over to the Stones session and talk to those guys. But Steven went right over and started hanging out with the Stones.
Wow. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about Steven Van Zandt and his acting and his syndicated radio show. But I want to give you, Robert Lawson, a wireless speaker from Moneris. Because things get spicy in episode 3 from season 7 of Yes, We Are Open, when Al Grego visits Nikhil Dutt, owner of Spice Circle. His family opened this restaurant back in 2019, despite having no prior business experience. Try to do that and make a success out of it. Not easy. So everybody, including you, Robert, should subscribe to Yes, We Are Open and listen to these fresh new episodes from season 7. Because you ready for this? Al went to Winnipeg. These are all Winnipeg stories in season 7.
Wow.
So we'll see if there's a Randy Bachman fact check episode in there. I don't know. Were you ever a guest on Yes, We Are Open?
Not yet.
Does Sunrise Records use Moneris?
Yes.
You know what it will be? That's awesome, except you're not small enough a business. I feel like Al focuses on the smaller family-run independent businesses. Sunrise is just too damn big. But how are things going over there at Cloverdale Mall? How long do you have before they boot you out?
Forever. I don't think that's not happening anytime soon. I mean, people. I get asked
But
about
I've
it.
seen the blueprints. How can it be forever?
I get asked about it like almost a dozen times a day.
Because they think it's coming, man.
They think it's so imminent. Customer just told me the other day that he took a cab to the mall, and the cab driver told him that the mall's being torn down this year.
Okay.
Why would you tear it down like 2 months before Christmas?
Sometimes there's some bad intel from these cabbies. But is that approved? So we've all seen not we have all, but anyone who cares about Cloverdale Mall has seen, that's just me and you, but no,
Maybe.
More than us. But we've seen these like pictures and blueprints of this whole Cloverdale this whole community that they're going to build there. You're saying that's years, maybe light years away.
I think
You're fact checking the condo developers.
I think at least 2 to 3 years from now, the sales office that was supposed to be open to the public, I think spring of this year, is still not open. I mean, it's open by appointment or something, but it's definitely not happening in 2025, and I would be surprised if it's anytime even before the end of 2026 that they even start doing any work on it.
So lots of time to get your butt to Sunrise at Cloverdale. So shout out to Cloverdale. Shout out to that Home Hardware discounted chocolate. That's where I go for my discounted. You know that. And my dentist is in there. I might be there tomorrow actually. Who knows? I'm trying to get an early morning appointment just for my every 6 months you got to get in for a cleaning.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Okay, well, come by and see you and tell you the reaction here. But what was I going to say? So my mom, I like it too, but I don't get out to it as much. I'm more of a eggalicious or olive man myself. But my mom very much enjoys going to the Dundas Street Grill. Now, that's not at Cloverdale Mall, but it's in the same kind of vicinity, and that place is done. Like they're building some kind of a condo tower or something on that real estate.
There's definitely a lot of work being done in Etobicoke, but you know, Honeydew Mall is still standing there as the skeletal remains of a shopping mall. I don't know why nobody's doing anything with that property.
Yeah, shout out to the Honeydew Mall there. And also, one more I'll shout out is that I was reading years ago that the Kipling Queensway, you know, where the Swiss Chalet is there, they said that place is stuff is going in. Okay, that was pre-pandemic. I was reading about that. So it's been 5, 6, 7 years now. And it's, I can still go to that Swiss Chalet.
The Starbucks that used to be on the corner right when you go down to Kipling Station, they're doing a lot of work on that corner. They've broken ground there really quickly. But yeah, there's a lot of spots along along Dundas there that they're nowhere near touching yet.
Lots of cranes in the sky, particularly on wherever there's a bike lane. Lots of cranes in the sky. I got to dig those up quickly. Okay, so I have in my hand for you, Robert Lawson, before we get back to Little Stevie. This is a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home.
Thank you.
So shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Brad Jones was at TMLX 16 last week at GLB Brew Pub. Thank you, GLB, for hosting us. The food was delicious. The beer was delicious. The company was great. All we were missing to make it perfect was a Robert Lawson appearance, but we'll try to make that happen at the Palmas Kitchen for TMLX 17.
Maybe I can catch a ride with Tyler or one of
Well,
those
I'm
guys.
going to see what I can do. But I was going to catch a ride with Tyler. So it's going to be, that's what we did last year.
A little crowded.
I'm going to see because these events always conflict with my son's house league hockey at Mimico Arena there. So we'll see what we can do. But last but not least, recyclemyelectronics.ca, Robert. That's where you go if you have old electronics, old devices, old cables that you need to get rid of. Don't throw that in the garbage. Those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca. Okay, I remember I'm keeping this to a crisp hour here. So I just saw a HBO doc about kind of like the making of Sopranos with David Chase, which I'm a big Sopranos fan, and I love this documentary very much. And it really gives you some insight, but I don't want to just quote David Chase. How does this musician end up in such a key role on such a premium prestige HBO drama like The Sopranos?
It's a pretty neat story. The story is that David Chase was watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame awards, and Steven was giving an induction speech for the Rascals, which of course were a big, 60s New Jersey pop rock group. A lot of great songs. So he was doing his bit. He's a bit of a funny guy, and he had, just a real kind of funny speech. You can watch it on YouTube. And Chase was really like taken with him. He really thought he had a character. There was an interview at one point where Chase said Steve Van Zant's face is New Jersey. And so from there he reached out to Steven, and they had him do some auditions, and eventually came up with this new character. The Silvio Dante character wasn't really originally a part of Sopranos, or at least not the Sopranos project that Chase was pitching to HBO at that time. So they kind of came up with the character together. Steven already had the name. He had kind of been working on a character named Silvio Dante, possibly for a script or something. So they combined that together and made this new character. And like I said earlier, he gets this role of being like the second in command to Tony Soprano, the boss, which is a role Steven was already very comfortable with, of playing that role in E Street Band with Bruce.
Who's the boss? Of course. You know what? I never really connected those dots before. It's worth noting Van Zant is an invented surname, because you'll be like, oh, he's Dutch or whatever, but that's not his actual birth name.
Well, his mother remarried when he was a kid, so her new husband, that was his surname, yeah.
Okay, but is he of Italian descent? Yes.
Both sides are Italian, yes.
Okay, I want to make sure there's no cultural appropriation here of Silvio Dante. You know how passionate I am about that. Okay, Robert.
No, he's definitely Italian. I've got photos in the book that have never been seen before of Steven in 1989 going to the small village of Calabria, trying to find any missing relatives or something like that. So those are, I'm really happy to be able to have those photos in there. I think even Steven hadn't seen those in a while.
Okay, well, again, if I haven't said it enough, solidarity forever. The art and soul of Stevie Van Zant. If you're a fan of good music, good storytelling, or maybe you're just a fan of Bruce Springsteen, or maybe you're just a fan of The Sopranos, for goodness sakes. Because I did read somewhere, maybe I heard it in the doc, it's been a couple of months now, but did he try out for the role of Tony Soprano?
Originally, yes.
Isn't that mind blow when you find out that Steven Van Zant, all kind of like, even that there's a possibility that he would play Tony?
I think HBO weren't on board with that just because he was not an actor. And now I don't know if the character was quite what we became to know as Tony Soprano. I'm sure Gandolfini brought a lot to that role. But yeah, an early version of Sopranos before Gandolfini was involved, Chase did try out Van Zant for the lead, but I think it all worked out well.
I think it all worked out, man. James Gandolfini owned that character. What a great performance. It's one of the great television performances of all time. But I will say, Steven Van Zant did a great job as Silvio. So here's a show I did not watch, and I'm not sure why I didn't watch it, because it was one of the first Netflix shows I remember being original programming at Netflix. Lilyhammer. So The Sopranos, then, of course, he's in the Lilyhammer. I saw him in The Irishman. Kind of wild that this musician is such a solid actor.
Lilyhammer is a lot of fun. It is a gangster kind of thing, but there's a lot more humor in it than Sopranos. You know, he's a New York gangster who goes into a witness protection program in Norway, so he's hiding from his enemies. There are a few of his old Sopranos co-stars who make appearances in the final season of Lilyhammer. It only ran for 3 seasons. There's also
Is it worth watching? Like, it's just sitting there, and I don't know why I never watched it. But should I watch Lilyhammer?
Absolutely. It's
Does it have a conclusion, or there's no open ending or anything? Right? Do they end up? Because I just don't want to get into a 3-season that was intended to be 4, and they have like some cliffhanger stuff that never got resolved.
No, it wraps up nicely. They could always come back and do another 4th season if they were interested. But no, it does wrap up nicely.
Was that the first original series to be made by Netflix?
Yes. It was like a co-production between Netflix and this Norwegian television company.
Fascinating. Okay, so I got to check that out. And it's worth a fun fact that we need to point out when people talk about Stevie on The Sopranos is that his wife on the program is played by his real-life wife, Maureen Santoro.
Yeah, Maureen is the Gabriella Dante character in Sopranos. She also appears in Lilyhammer.
Okay. Jeez. Goodness gracious. Fun fact also, when they got married, Bruce was the best man, right?
Bruce was the best man. All of the E Street Band members were there. It was the first wedding that Little Richard officiated. He had become a minister. There's a new Steve Van Zandt documentary on HBO called Disciple. It's directed by a friend of mine named Bill Tech. And Bill and his team, including, there's a whole bunch of guys, Robert Cotto, found footage from Stephen's wedding to Maureen. And both Stephen and Maureen told the team that that footage was missing. It was lost. They haven't seen it in years. It got thrown out by mistake somehow or whatever. And I think it was Robert Cotto, the producer specifically, who found the footage from the wedding. So I've always known about this wedding. There was a picture in Rolling Stone when it happened of Little Richard, doing the vows. Really wild to see it. So if you're interested in Stephen, this documentary called Disciple is really, really informative. Although my book takes a deeper dive into Stephen's own music.
It pairs nicely with your book, but it doesn't replace your book.
No.
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? I'm disgusted at the sentiment. Okay. And also, Percy Sledge sings When a Man Loves a Woman at this aforementioned wedding.
Yeah, and they had the band from the Godfather movie.
Really?
In there. Yeah, it's pretty wild. A lot of the Southside, not Southside himself, but a lot of the Asbury Jukes were there. Like I said, all the E Street Band. Stephen's new group, the Disciples of Soul, they were all there. It was pretty wild.
Some wild stuff. What can you share with us here? Not a lot of time. Again, you'll be back. Robert Lawson will be back whenever there's news in the Guess Who or Stephen Van Zandt universe. We'll get Robert Lawson back on. But what can you share with us about Little Steven's Underground Garage?
So it's been running for a long time now, like over 20 years, I think. He breaks a lot of new bands. They do these kind of festivals in the States occasionally with like 25 different groups from his label, but he also gets other kind of psychedelic or garage bands, even from the 60s or 70s to reunite. He's been a big proponent of pushing classic kind of garage rock and roll and psychedelic rock and roll for years now. For a while, there was a series of CDs of like all the best of the underground garage. And, one of the things about the book that Stephen said to me was, and it really struck me. He said, of all the things that I do, playing in the E Street Band, producing artists, doing a record label, acting on, gangster shows, my own music is what people talk about the least amount. So that's why this book is important to him. So it's great to cover all that kind of stuff because his career is so interesting in that way. But also I want to talk about his music. And
I don't want to bury this lead, but Burton Cummings and Stephen Van Zandt are two fantastic musicians who will take Robert Lawson's call. Am I right? They'll take your call, or they'll just reply to a text or an email?
Yeah. I'm seeing Stephen on November 3rd. I'm supposed to be presenting him with his own copy of the book. So hopefully that's happening. That's like in a week and a half from now or something. So I better get those books on time.
Okay, and I'm going into my calendar. This is exciting because I'm going into my calendar to find out what day. Here, let me go today. Here we go. What day is, the 5th. No, not the 5th. I'm lying to you. Come on, Mike, get this right here. The 6th, yes, I'm seeing Bruce Springsteen in concert on the 6th of November. My first time seeing him.
Oh, wow.
Will you be catching them this? Stevie must be able to put you on a list.
Well, I'm seeing them on, they're doing 2 shows in Toronto.
Okay.
So I'm seeing them on the 3rd, and I'm going to be seeing Steven specifically before the show to present him with the book.
Dude, this is amazing that you're going to have that moment. Make sure you capture video. I'm sure. Will your wife be with you to get a good photo?
She's
Definitely. Like your official photographer.
Which is odd because people should be taking pictures of her.
Well, I do. Don't worry. I've said too much here. Okay, so come on. I told you. What do you call it? You're punching. Is that the term that we're using now? You're punching.
Above my weight?
Yeah. I heard on some British thing I was watching, he goes, "You're punching, mate. You're punching." And I realized, oh, that's a faster way to say you're punching above your weight.
Yeah.
Okay, good for you, though. I am too. So we're all in the same gang here. We're all in the same gang here. So now I see that. So Bruce has a concert on the 3rd, it sounds like. I'm seeing him on the 6th. 4th and 5th seem to be empty. Which one of those days do you want me to put Steven in the Toronto Mike recording calendar? Which one of those days is he going to visit the basement?
I don't know if he's staying in town between shows. A lot of people don't seem to understand that. They don't necessarily stay, especially he lives.
But this is a great city. Why not stick around?
Well, he could, but he lives in New York. He might want to sleep in his own bed.
That's true. That's true. There are these things called airplanes. Okay. Fun fact, some of these artists, I'm going to name some artists that have covered songs written by Steven Van Zandt. Okay. In addition to Bruce Springsteen, the late great Meatloaf, Nancy Sinatra, Pearl Jam, of course, Southside Johnny. We talked about artists united against apartheid. And that's a pretty cool little list right there. So Pearl Jam, do you know what song Pearl Jam recorded that was written by, do you know, Steven Van Zandt?
I Am a Patriot.
Okay, look.
Which was also covered by Chris Christopherson, and Eddie Vedder does that one solo as well quite a few times.
Giving me chills here. Okay.
Jackson Brown does that one too.
Wow. Okay. Running on empty over there. Now, we're running on empty because I don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to give you this last 5 minutes. I see you got notes in front of you. You're very thorough. Are these notes? What are these notes?
I just wrote. That was just a.
You didn't know I'd be asking these difficult questions.
That was just a couple of dates for the Randy talk.
Okay, the Randy talk. Did I miss anything that we should be fact checking on the Guess Who front?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said, the big news is that the name has reverted back to Burton and Randy. I don't know what they're going to do with it.
Well, that's my question. Will they do shows together? They got to make hay while the sun is out, because I don't know how old Randy is now, but I would guess 82 or so. Am I close?
He's up there.
Yeah, like you got to make I like that expression. Okay, make hay while the sun is out. If we're gonna get a Guess Who tour or whatever, like the real Guess Who, now's the time.
I don't really see how it could happen, because the guys that Burton's been playing with, he's been playing with them for a really long time. So I don't really see Randy, Burton, and those guys, the Carpet Frogs, going out as the Guess Who. I mean, they could. I just don't know if they really would. And I don't know how many other real Guess Who members are either on good terms with the guys or are interested in doing it. So I don't know.
Well, speaking of Burton, do you know the name Tim Bovaconti?
Of course, he's Burton's guitar player.
Okay, so what more do you know? So Tim is the current guitar player for Burton Cummings.
One of 2 guitars, yeah.
Okay, he'll be here tomorrow.
Oh.
Isn't that a weird coincidence?
Wow.
Yeah, Tim's going to make his Toronto Mike debut tomorrow. We'll be on the live stream at 11 a.m., and I'm looking forward to talking to Tim, and we'll talk a lot about Burton Cummings then. I'll drop your name. I'll make sure he knows if he has any interest in little Steven. I see your t-shirt and the Disciples of Soul. Very cool. We'll get to see that in the photo here. I'm about to play a little Rosie and Gray from Lowest of the Low, but is there anything else about little Stevie that you think is a fun fact before people, rush out and buy the book?
Again, to me, his career is just really interesting because it covers so many different things. I was surprised. I saw the documentary in New York City as part of the Tribeca Film Festival. They were showing scenes from Sopranos and like some of Steven's famous kind of funny scenes from Sopranos, and people in the audience were laughing like they'd never seen it before. And
one of the things he used to do a lot more in the beginning, but he would imitate The Godfather. Like he would break into his, every time I get away, they suck me back in or whatever, and it would amuse Paulie in the game.
Yeah, so there seems to be a lot of people, I didn't really know this was the case, who don't know that the guy in Springsteen's band is also on Sopranos, or vice versa, that they haven't really put that together. And I'm hearing that more from people now, like since I've been working on this book.
Do you think we've overestimated mankind? And I mean that non-gender specific mankind, because I think the other day I was going to Nicolette Lawson covered a Neil Young song, and I was going to share it on Toast with the Neil Young version of this song, because it was his song. And then my son told me that everybody knows Lot of Love is a Neil Young song. And then I said, well, there might be someone out there. And then I did it. And on the live stream, there were several people who were learning that for the first time. Do you think we just assume everybody knows things like Silvio Dante is Little Stevie from the E Street Band? Do you think we should just like not assume anything anymore? Because how do you know that if you're of a certain age, if nobody points it out to you?
Probably true. And if like me, you mostly hang out with guys who know a lot about music,
right,
and know a lot about movies, so we're in our own bubble.
That's it. We're in this bubble. You're right. We're in this bubble. You know, I'm not gonna bore Cam Gordon with this fun fact or whatever, because of course he knows that. But we can't assume the great unwashed are as versed in these fun facts and mind blows as you and I are, Robert.
Every couple of months, I see somebody on Facebook saying, "Did you know that the spaceships on the cover of the first Boston album are actually upside down guitars?" And I'm like, I thought everybody knew that. I thought I knew that in like 1978 or something. What are you talking about? And all the comments would be like, "Oh my God, I've never saw that," or "I never knew that." So,
oh geez, man. Well, you're here not only
maybe I just told a whole bunch of people who didn't know before.
Well, you know what? I didn't know that, but I was going to tell you privately later, because I have a reputation to uphold, Robert.
Of course.
But you know what's the album again?
Men Without Women?
No.
The first Boston album.
Right. Okay. So,
jeez.
Okay. Look. No. That's mid 70s release.
77, 76.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. So that's my Sesame Street fever era. Maybe it's that. Maybe I'm maybe there's a hippo in my back. Actually, you know what that is? That's the Teddy Bear's Picnic era, I think. So, you know, me and some of the other youngins out there are forgiven for not knowing what the cover of this Boston album looks like, 'cause we just know more than a feeling from compilations and classic rock radio.
Sure.
So I'm good. Come on.
Okay. Well,
cut us some slack, man.
I'm glad that I let you know.
But that's the heat. You know, you end it high, because I love it when I learn something like that. So I'm gonna go Google what the hell does this cover look like, and say, holy shit, those are upside down guitars. That's what I'm gonna do, Robert. Robert, always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope to see you tomorrow at Sunrise at Cloverdale Mall. Before I talked to Burden Cummings, guitarist. So I hope to see you then, and let me know when those books are there, because then I'll tell people on the podcast to get their ass to Sunrise at Cloverdale to get a copy of the wonderful new book you've written. Some people have trouble reading a book. You write books, okay? Solidarity Forever, the art and soul of Stevie Van Zandt. Thanks for dropping by, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Always like being here.
Next time, wear the Great Lakes hat, okay?
I'll bring my wife.
Bring your wife, because she can take photos of you during the show. And bring the Great Lakes hat, because that's the most delicious craft beer in this province.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,570th show. Go to torontomike.com for more about me. Robert, where do you want to send people so they can follow your adventures and buy your books, et cetera, et cetera?
Instagram or Facebook. I'm posting any new updates on the book there as soon as we get them. Trying to let as many people know about this one as possible, so that at least the awareness factor is up. So as soon as I get the books, we'll be posting videos, and probably going to do a video, I think, later this afternoon too, just kind of clarifying for some people. That I don't have the books yet, but they are coming very soon. But like I said before, people in the States, you can order them now from Amazon.com, and the publisher Friesen Press, they have them in their online bookstore as well.
Much love to all who made this possible. That is Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's recyclemyelectronics.ca. That's Raymond James Canada. That's Moneris. That's Ridley Funeral Home. The reason I only had an hour with you, Robert, is I'm about to co-host a webinar with Barb Paluskowitz in the guise Elvira. I was like, what the hell is her name? It's Halloween. I should know. Elvira. So she'll be dressed as Elvira. And then I'm going to get my ass to One Yorkville, and I'm going to chat up, not for Toronto Mike, but for a client, I'm going to chat up Olympic medalist Alicia Newman. That sounds like a pretty good day. See you all tomorrow when Tim Bovacanti is my special guest.
Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine.